faces with names. I'm Kathy.
I'm Barb.
And I'm Katie. Oh.
That's okay. Katie, Barb.
Yep.
And Carla.
That's me.
Nice to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. So what we're supposed to do, they gave a handout of some questions that we're supposed to go over to try and help us with the case. So the first question is, what is the issue with regards to the case that we were reading this week?
Well, I think the big issue, if I can jump in and go first, is Simon.
Yeah.
Simon just got newly promoted. He's just full of all kind of ambition and wants to accomplish everything because he's a new branch manager, and he seems to have a problem with his ability to communicate properly with people. So I think that's what the problem is, the issue.
Okay, and they gave a hint that said Simon's behavior is inconsistent with the company culture. So how would you describe the company culture?
I don't have it in front of me anymore, but it kind of seemed like everybody worked together, like when they went over that brand review meeting. So there were 6 brand managers, and that they each kind of presented with their team, like their information. So it seemed like they really are focused on more like group work as well as like cooperation between departments. So it seems like they really do want to work together, and Simon's just kind of wanting to be up on top.
Okay, yes.
Can I add something? Sorry.
Yeah.
So going along with what Katie said, I agree with that. It seems like they have open communication because it sounds like this is something that just occurred and that someone was willing to right away say something about it and like acknowledge that there is a problem to be solved. So I really like that about the company, that they didn't just like sweep things under the rug and like just act like everything's okay. So I agree with what Katie said.
Okay, good. And the next question is, why is it important? And the hint is behavior that is inconsistent with the culture demoralizes others and dilutes the effectiveness of the group. So why is the company culture something that is important to focus on?
Let me see.
Well, like Katie said, they've got a tight-knit group that seem to be meshing really well. You know, one thing I want to mention about Simon is he was one of the members before. I mean, he was an assistant branch president or manager. He got in and he made things happen. He was very effective in getting things stirred back up again to where they had one of their he re-energized a 150-year-old brand because of using social media and things like that. So I mean, he was one of the team players. But I think the culture is now he thinks that he's in a position where he's got to demonstrate his authority, and I think it's kind of gone to his head.
Okay, that's a good point. So the question is, what specific behaviors of his raised concern?
I think when he was yelling at the production.
Okay.
That's
I felt like that was definitely even overstepping, not just like on a
right.
Like you shouldn't be yelling at people in a workplace anyways, but it wasn't even his department. And so
Right.
it felt like he didn't even have any authority there. And I just remember thinking, that's a really bad move to yell at someone you're not even in charge of. And so, so something that really stuck out to me with when they talked about the meeting they're in, threw his own team members under the bus in front of everyone, like publicly humiliating them.
Right.
I think the word you used earlier was demoralizing. That's totally demoralizing. If I were in this group, I wouldn't want to work. Like I'd be like, well, that's it. Like you do it.
I think he said something like, "Thank goodness this is just a company meeting and we're not presenting to somebody outside," right?
In front of everybody. I was like, yeah, that was bad.
And I think that the thing that really made that awful was because the person who made the error said, you know, he took possession of the error, said, yes, I did that, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But then Simon kept on going and just,
that was inappropriate.
Making it worse.
Okay, good. So let's see. Another question is, what are corporate politics and how can it affect the culture of a company?
Well, you have a line of authority that you're supposed to go to, and like Katie pointed out, he went down to the production floor and started yelling and screaming at the people down there. And what he should have done is he should have gone and approached John, who was the director down there, and he should have visited with him in private and kind of consulted with him and expressed his concerns. And then if it needed to escalate somewhere else, then they should have requested a meeting with Mary and had the branch managers come together to where they could have discussed it and come up with an idea as to how they were going to come up with a solution. But it said that he allowed himself to become enraged and when he saw that it was an inferior product in his mind. So, I mean, he should have gone through the proper steps of contacting those individuals that were key players that were over the different departments instead of just assuming that his role was to go and yell at all of them.
Okay, good. I like that. And so what is your guys' take on John's reaction? I think his last name is Shelburne.
Yeah, I thought his response was appropriate, kind of what Gerald just pointed out, how he went through the proper steps where there was this issue, and instead of just retaliating and freaking out at Simon, he went straight to Mary, which was the right thing to do.
Yeah,
Okay, so do you think the way that he did that was appropriate?
he was
seemed like he was a little frustrated.
he was a little dramatical there, but
Yeah, a little bit.
I think Simon got in his head because of the way he went running, and it was interesting to me that Mary sighed and slightly cringed because she could see him coming with such haste towards her, and then he didn't even allow her to even say anything. He just butted right in and continued, which showed a lack of respect, I thought, on his part. You know, they could have called on the phone or even sent an email trying to say, hey, I've got a problem. Can I schedule a meeting with you?
Yeah, that's kind of something what I was thinking about, Gerald, along those lines, because what I envisioned was something like happening in my own company where you're walking in the hallway and you see somebody and then you start talking about something that is a little bit sensitive and could be confidential. You don't want other people hearing, the issues that you're having with somebody else that's in authority. So I think, yeah, he could have probably handled it a little bit better where he sent an email or a meeting request and he sat down with her and said, look, this is what's happening. I'm not sure if you're aware. What can you do to try and help the situation? Great. All right, so now we're going on to Mary's role. So how is she supporting the culture? So Mary is Mary Griffin. She's the vice president.
I think she's handling it in an appropriate way because she reviewed her thoughts in regards to Simon. She complimented him on his passion and his creativity. She didn't just jump in and yell at him. She scheduled a meeting with him, is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to bring them into your office and review some of the things that need to be reviewed.
Right, and I like how you pointed out she focused first on some of the good qualities or the strengths that he has, rather than just focusing on what went wrong. So I think that's important. How is she working against the culture? And the hint is allowing inconsistent behavior, delaying a response to the issue. So did you guys notice that she was delaying a response to the issue?
I didn't take it
right away to John, but other than that, I don't know. Sorry.
She never did specify to John exactly what was going to happen and when. She just thanked him for the information. And then I thought it was interesting that her assistant was a bit evasive for the purpose of the meeting. And,
Okay.
You know, that was a concern to me. Instead of just calling him up and saying, I need to see you right now, let's address this issue. She was a bit evasive. And so then in his mind, he started thinking about all the great things that he had been able to accomplish and that he thought this was going to be a attaboy on his back, get a pat on the back, and that this was going to be a big moment for him to be able to continue to grow in the company. So her role was a little bit that she was not assertive enough to take control of what was going on.
Okay, so you could have been a little bit more assertive. Okay, good. So now for turning towards Simon, how is he supporting the culture? How is he contributing to the team and responding to needs? So Simon is the one that actually ended up blowing up, right? Simon York, he's the one who got promoted. So what were some things that he was doing that we read in the case that contributed to the team and responded to their needs with regards to the culture of the company?
Go ahead, Carla. I want to hear you jump in.
Okay, so I think that kind of with what Mary was saying, like bringing out all the positive things that he's done, at least before, he did seem like a team player. It seemed like he was very innovative and even respectful to the previous, I don't know what, brand manager.
Right.
Because it said that he respected him, but still, like, I guess gave jokes as to like, oh, but we should still do this, this, and that. So I thought that was pretty cool. Something positive about him was that he was able to be respectful, at least to people over him. I don't know about people under him, but definitely people that were in authority. So I thought that was very good on his end.
Okay.
That's true.
Anyone else want to add anything? Okay, so the next question is, how is he working against the culture? So how is his actions contrary to the company's culture?
I think for me, what I kind of felt was going on, especially like with that meeting, was he wasn't really working with, like either below him or like on his team. Because you have to work together to reach certain goals, and when he undermined those people that were supposed to be, he's supposed to be working side by side with, it makes it really hard to work together later on. It doesn't show any unity. It doesn't show any reliability. It just shows like, oh, you can work together, but the moment you make a mistake, I'm going to throw you to the wolves or leave you to the wolves, kind of a thing, instead of supporting them or trying to help them through that.
Great. So what did you guys pick up on as was his actual issue that he had? Like, why was he so upset? Did you get that from the reading?
I wonder if it had to do with that X Games endorsement thing. Like it's like it had him on edge since it coincided with his promotion. It made it seem like he's like he felt all this responsibility, so he just kind of like thought, oh, this is how I'm gonna show I'm in charge, that I can handle this new responsibility and this X Games.
Right. So
I think there was something else in there too, because he had high expectations on himself. He wanted everything to be perfect. I think he was a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And by being a perfectionist, you assume others will be the same. And I think that's what he put his team on, is them trying to be the same as him. And when he got frustrated, he got terribly frustrated when things didn't go right. So I think it was...
What I gathered is he had an issue with the size of the X that was placed on the food product.
Yeah, that was really dumb.
Right. So the grand scheme of things, it was still an X. I mean, it might have been a little bit smaller than he wanted, but yeah. So maybe his reaction to the overall problem. I mean, they were able to get that contract to be the provider of it, and they were, meeting the specifications of what they wanted. It just wasn't up to his standards, even though maybe other people, didn't see it the same way as he did. So it seemed to me that he wasn't taking into account other people's views that were working on the project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have something to say. I think if he would have been, I guess, more involved in the process of making the product, like if he was so concerned at the very end, once everything was already done, he should have been, while they were making the product, while they were doing the specs, the drawings, the development, exactly. So I think that was kind of on him as being manager and being promoted, that was something that he should have taken care of as well.
Okay.
If he was going to complain about it later on.
Yep. All right. That's great. So now we're going to move on to the team members' roles, and it says, how are they supporting the culture? And the hint is providing feedback to York and Griffin and providing results. So the team member, I guess, are the people that were actually being berated in the meeting, right? These were the ones that were actually doing the work and creating the product. So how are they supporting the culture of the company?
Well, Tim Durham is the assistant branch manager that he belittled and made such a fool out of in the meeting when there was an error in the financial analysis that was being presented. And then the thing that I really caught my attention, and this was when the team members all hung their head because they wanted the meeting to be over. They were so embarrassed with what he had done to them.
Right.
When you have that kind of environment, I don't know that you would want to really trust the individual and really want to help them out. When you're on a team like that, when somebody's willing to throw you under the bus and act like it wasn't a big deal, that's when you start really losing respect for each other and having things come unraveled. And this was just the beginning right here. And then just a short time later to have him go totally out of his department and go in and scream and yell like he did was totally out of line again. So he's just showing that he's got a tendency that's not real encouraging or even right to have in this type of a culture.
Okay, good. So one of the things that they want us to talk about are what some things that we would recommend that they start doing, that they stop doing, or that they continue doing in each of their roles. So let's first start with starting. So what recommendations would we suggest that they start doing on the different levels with the different players? So what are some things that they can each start doing? So let's start with Mary, I guess, because she's at the top. What's some things that she can do?
I think that she needs to address Simon. He's transitioning into a manager. It takes time to be a good manager, and he probably needs some managerial seminars or training that can go through. So I think that she can encourage him to take these trainings, and he can be a good manager, I think, once he learns a little more about it.
Okay, so to maybe work with him a little bit more on developing his managerial skills?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the things that's real crucial right there, though, is that she needs to sit down and point out where he's gone wrong.
Okay.
Out where he's making
constructive feedback, maybe.
Yeah, she's got to give him feedback so he understands why all of a sudden he's mandated to go get this training that we're suggesting.
Right.
He's got to understand that because of certain behaviors he's done, that this is going to help him become better, and it's only going to improve his abilities, but he's got to understand where he's gone wrong to begin with.
Okay. So let's move on to John. Is there anything that he can start to do to help things along? So John is the one that approached Mary in the hallway. So he is actually the head of the production department, I think, right? He was above the people that were getting berated?
Yeah, he's the plant director.
Okay, so what are some things that he can do to try and to help everything along?
Yes, you better.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Carla.
Carla.
Okay. I think some things that someone already had mentioned earlier about it seemed like he had a bit of a temper and that he was frustrated. So I think him bringing it up, this issue, is a good thing. But I also think that he could have been better with how he approached the situation and not gotten mad himself, because he's getting mad and upset over something that Simon did. But then in a way, he's kind of acting like Simon and not like controlling his feelings and controlling his anger. So I like that he was open enough to say something and didn't just keep it in. But I also think that he could have done it in a better manner.
Okay, good. And I think he actually even used the word, who does he think he is? Some kind of hotshot, can go around doing whatever he wants. So it almost seemed like he was a little bit jealous of his promotion. So maybe
And then
to try
another
and show,
thing,
maybe
another
to try and show a little bit more support for him in his new position. I mean, not saying the way he addressed the way he was doing things, but to try and support him in his leadership position.
it was
Maybe give him
interesting that
tips.
John told Mary that doesn't he know how things are done here?
Right. Yeah, that was interesting. And how about Simon? What are some things that he should start doing?
I think he kind of needs to take a step back and kind of focus on himself. Like that paragraph in his perspective was kind of, because he's so inward focused, and so like it sounds bad to say self-centered, but he kind of was. Like he wasn't thinking about, it's just like, oh good, they know their place, like they know that I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Kind of take a step back and kind of think of ways that he can, what he can do to help, like you said, like we've been saying, build up that culture and not be an impediment to it.
Right. And so some of the things, some of the ways that he was acting was actually putting distance between him and the other members. It wasn't building or fostering trust, right? Like the book, The Speed of Trust that we're reading. So he was actually doing things opposite and putting himself in a position where people won't trust him because of the way that he was acting. So now let's just go to some of the things that we think that they should each stop doing. So we talked about things that they should start doing. What should they stop doing?
I think it needs to stop being, what's the word? Somewhat evasive. She needs to be more direct in what she's doing. With John, she could have corrected him right away and said, "Step into my office. We want to take care of this out here in the hall."
So she has to stop being so evasive and be more direct.
More direct.
Okay. And how about John? Anything that he needs to stop doing?
He needs to probably, kind of going off of the step in my office thing, he probably needs to stop being so careless, maybe, or information, especially about another person.
Okay.
Probably needs to stop kind of sharing really sensitive info like that out in the open.
Good. And how about Simon?
Well, where do we begin?
It almost seems like he's trying to micromanage everything, right?
Yeah.
Maybe try and let the manager of the department handle the issue. He should have, try and gone to him and said, "Hey, what's going on here with your people? Didn't they realize the specifications for this should have been such and such?" Instead of berating them, and publicly humiliating them, go to their manager and tell him what his issues were. So stop trying to correct everything himself.
Yeah.
And let other people do their jobs. And that kind of goes along with our reading, where if you give somebody responsibility, it helps to build trust in them if you actually have faith that they'll do what you're asking them to do, right? Instead of, before you even let them do it, then you jump all over them and say, well, you should be doing it this way, or this is how it should be done.
Green and clean.
Okay. So the next thing they want us to work on is, how should Mary approach the discussion with Simon? So now they're in the meeting.
I think she was thinking of all the positive things he'd done in the past and like all the good things about him. She should probably start with that, saying like, we've really appreciated everything you've done here. good work. That's why you've been promoted. Start with that. Say like, hey, we appreciate you. You're so it doesn't just go straight. What are you doing? Like just kind of
Right.
acknowledge the good things he's done. And
Okay,
then be
good.
like, we just need to address some things.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any suggestions on how she should start the conversation or the meeting?
I think
About the actual issues.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think after she talks about his positive attributes, I think just being humble, being like everyone has things to work on. We all have room for improvement. And these are some of the things that I've noticed, and like just kind of be assertive but kind, and
Okay.
in a way that he's realizing that there's something that he needs to work on, and that it's coming from a loving, I want to see you, succeed in this company. Or as long as he feels that she's doing it because she cares for him and not because she just wants to criticize him, I think that would be super important in order for him to take it the right way.
Okay. Does anyone want to add anything else?
I think that it's important that we point out again that his intentions are to make the business succeed. He just
Right.
needs to be channeled, his energy needs to be channeled in a proper way so that he can make everybody appreciate what he's trying to do, but then be a team player and work together. So I think those are some of the key points she needs to help him realize. And then again, like we mentioned before, she needs to talk to him about proper training and help him so he can be mentored and taught the way that he needs to be able to handle the situations that come up.
Okay, good. I think one of the things that I would do if I was Mary and I had to, hold that meeting with him after, giving him some positive feedback about some of the things that she saw him doing right, I would probably turn it over to him and say, so how are things going with you? What are some things that you're struggling with, or what are some issues that you're having? To try and get his side of how he's perceiving everything that's going on. That way she might be able to better work the things that she wants him to be clarified on that he's doing wrong. And so let's see. What's the most effective methods Mary can use to make the discussion productive?
I think we just talked a lot about that. We sort of went through all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things I would add is also giving the honest feedback to him about how people are perceiving him or interpreting his actions. That way he, because he says, well, maybe she's going to want to sit down with me and tell me, what a great job I'm doing and everything that's going well. But maybe she needs to let him know that he's being perceived differently. If he might not be aware of the way he's being perceived.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And also that could help him see the effect his actions are having, because he's thinking, yeah, I'm doing great, kind of setting the bar.
Right.
See that, because it sounds like he has no idea how inappropriate his actions are. And so that'll help him see, like, no, you're actually inappropriate, but you're also actually hurting other people through your actions and affecting that culture that the company is maintaining.
Okay.
And actually, he was at the assistant manager position previously. And if he would put himself in Tim's shoes, see how Tim would have felt at that meeting and how he would have reacted if someone did that to him.
Right.
Might help him to better understand what they're going through.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they want us to describe principles of effective feedback and how it applies to the situation. So I think you just touched on it. Put yourself in that person's position. How would you have felt? Right? So that's a good way to use effective feedback. Anything else that we can relate to that with regards to effective feedback for him?
I think, hello?
Yep.
Okay. I think that something that always helps me is remembering who has given me positive feedback and how I've grown from it, and who has just criticized me and how I've taken that. So I feel like maybe just making him reminisce or think about positive leaders in his life and what they did for him,
Okay.
and people that were not as nice and didn't help him progress. And in order for him to try to be like those positive leaders and be that leader that someone else was to him, be that leader to the people under him now. So that's what I would do.
Okay, great. So the next thing is they want us to try and connect some of the things that we're reading with the case that we're going over this week. So what principles, if any, from this lesson's reading apply to the case?
Trust is everything. You know, if you can't trust your coworkers, you're not going to be willing to really get along too well with them. And reading some of our peers or classmates' comments, I thought it was interesting that several times that was brought up that some kind of an experience they had in their life with employment, where when one young lady in particular said she had to leave her job and move to another office because her boss didn't trust her and she didn't trust her. You know, those kind of relationships are crucial in order for us to succeed no matter where we are. And, you know, intent, this week's reading, really getting into intent and what is our real intent of what we're doing. You know, that speaks volumes. People can read right through if you're really sincere and really trying to do the work that you're supposed to be doing and making it a team effort to succeed. People see that. And if we're all about, like Simon there a little bit, he's self-centered, it's all about himself and what he wants to look like, then that kind of comes across where people aren't going to want to work and the relationship isn't going to be that inviting.
All right, good. Anyone else have anything that they want to add to that?
I think humility. The book talked a lot about how leaders and trustworthy people had that aspect of humility, that they were able to listen and to accept criticism and just be humble. And I really like that part of the book because I feel like the best leaders are humble. Like if we look at, you know, our Savior, he was the most humble person. And even though he was perfect, he was still humble enough to pray to Heavenly Father and to ask for things, even though, you know, he could do anything. So I think that's what has caught my attention most out of the reading is if you're humble, then you have so much room for improvement. If you're humble, you're going to listen to others. If you're humble, you're going to do what's best for the company and not just what makes you look good. So
yeah, that's a good perspective, and I like that you added that in there. And it seems like when he was in his other position, he did have or he did express some humility when he was working with the other person. So we know that he has it within him. We just need to make it come awake again so that way he can apply it in his new role. How did everyone do with the write-up? Did you all come up with some things that you thought were issues and suggestions on how they could be resolved? Or is anybody struggling with anything?
I've turned mine in. I came up with 4 points that I thought were necessary for them to be able to resolve, and then I came up with recommendations on those 4 items that I thought would help resolve the situation. And it's the same things that we've discussed this evening concerning these same topics. Those are the kind of same things that I felt were important to address in it.
Great. Is everyone else okay with the assignment?
My question is, do we have these group meetings prior to us submitting our paper in?
I think what we're supposed to do is discuss the scenario, and it can be based on what time frame works for our group. So we picked Tuesday, so it's fortunate for us that it's before the deadline to turn it in. So if we're ever stuck on a case study, we can use this meeting to try and help us. But the intent is for us to have the reading done and to formulate some ideas and suggestions before we meet.
Because my, like your time frame is 7:30. I'm 2 hours ahead of you. So when we are done here at 10:30, I would only have like a half hour or so to get my thing finished and into the
Right.
end.
So
So
it's
it
actually
wouldn't
not,
work for me.
it's not actually due until tomorrow morning at 1 a.m.
Yeah, well, that's tonight at 1 a.m.
Right.
And if we have work tomorrow, we can't stay up that late.
Barb, where are you at? Where are you?
I'm in the eastern part of the country. I'm in Pennsylvania.
Okay, so I'm in Rhode Island, so I'm in the same situation as
So
you.
you're in the same situation, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm an early morning seminary teacher, so I get up at 3:30.
Yeah,
Bless you.
it's tough. That is very
Yeah.
tough.
It's very tough. So we can always correspond by email if we're struggling before we meet to try and get some ideas going, if that helps you.
Yeah.
Did anybody have an option to meet on Mondays?
There might have been
Probably could.
out there.
I've got my kids, so I mean, we have family home evening, and then this time frame of year, I've got a son that's graduating in 2 weeks, and they're finishing up school, so every Monday night's got some kind of commitment all the way through. So
Gotcha.
that's why I put down Tuesdays. One of the things, though, Barb, is for next week's lesson, we're supposed to meet actually before Tuesday, because there's not a case study really that we're going to be working on. It's the instructions kind of give us an idea of what we're supposed to be doing. So I don't know, evening works for any of you or Saturday during the day, for us to be able to meet to discuss what the lesson material is, because we've got to do that too before we actually, Tuesday would be kind of too late for us to actually get that done. So it's saying for us to request to meet earlier.
And what are we supposed to be meeting about?
Well, the instructions on the site, from what I read earlier today, they were mentioning something to the effect that we were supposed to get together and discuss the topic. And I can't really tell you exactly what that is right now, Kathleen. I don't have that in front of me.
Right, and I think one of the other things that we were supposed to get accomplished tonight is we're supposed to pick who's going to be leading the meetings for the next, I think there's like 6 meetings.
Well,
And we're supposed to post it on that Google Doc.
so my suggestion would be that we go ahead and stop this broadcast and still stay on and continue to, because we're live right now recording.
Okay.
Actually get turned into Brother Sands. So if everybody's in agreement, have we covered the material that we needed to?
I believe so.
I think so.
Okay, so I'll stop the broadcast now, and then we can continue to be here on site and continue to plan out who's going to take what lessons. So I'll stop it right now.